Welcome to One Chapter, One Thought. I'm Pastor Chris from Lincroft Bible Church in New Jersey, and every weekday I read one chapter of the New Testament and offer one brief devotional thought. Today's reading is from the book of Revelation, chapter 13. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea, with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns, and blasphemous names on its head. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's. Its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed. And the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast also, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. And authority was given it over every tribe, people, language, and nation, and all who dwell on the earth will worship it, everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword he must be slain. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of the people. And by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also it causes all, both great and small, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark that is the name of the beast, or the name, or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. One thought. John sees another vision of the adversary of God and his people. And he sees this vision with a few beasts. The first, there's a beast that rises out of the sea in verses 1 through 10. And then another beast that rises from the earth in 11 through 18. Now, to properly understand Revelation, we need to know our Old Testament. Particularly, we need to know the book of Daniel, because John draws extensively from Daniel chapter 7 here. In the original chapter, in Daniel chapter 7, the prophet Daniel sees a vision of 4 beasts rising out of the sea, and they each represent 4 successive kingdoms in history: Babylon, Media Persia, Greece, and then Rome. And each of these empires, each of these kingdoms, is represented by a beast. And see if these sound familiar. In his vision, Babylon is represented by a lion, Media Persia by a bear, Greece a leopard, and Rome by a dreadful beast that has iron teeth and 10 horns. And so in John's vision, all of those beasts are now essentially melded into one mega beast. We see that in the first couple of verses. This beast that John sees it had the body of a leopard, feet like a bear, and mouth like a lion and great power, and it had 10 horns, 7 heads, with 10 diadems. So it's a composite picture of all the empires that are mentioned in Daniel chapter 7. And so what I think John is saying here is that this beast represents political authority opposed to God. Governments can have a tendency to coerce others and overinflate their importance. And that's the interesting thing about what the Bible says about government. On the one hand, it is a good thing. In Romans 13, it brings order to the world, and God has given us government and political authority to restrain evil. And yet, on the other hand, it can be evil itself, can overstep its bounds. And so the beast persecutes the church, and yet the church is called to have endurance through suffering. And so I think that this passage calls us to be sober-minded about any earthly power. Only Christ is the one that we can hope in. We cannot put our hope or our trust in the powers of the world, but solely in Jesus' heavenly kingdom.